Hey everybody, it's your boy Protagonist JWA with Gardening with JWA. And this right here, as I switch hands, is all my Indian green jujube. Just a huge, massive pile of mulch, or soon to be mulch, that I'm going to have to cut and process. The Indian green jujube, let me just to show you so you can see it, was this guy. So I'm gonna get a chainsaw. I'm gonna butcher him all the way down. And I kind of waited till strategically the nights are getting cooler. We are gonna have like a couple of days where it like taps 100, but what's gonna be nice about that is that's gonna help this guy, who I think was suffering a little bit being completely under the shade. And he probably had a deficiency at some point, judging by this spotting. I forget what it's called, but he seems to be doing better, which is nice. And obviously has a ton of fruit on them and a ton of blooms. The fruit are kind of harder to see. They're all at different stages. Well, that's a lemon. That's my Meyer lemon, which is weird because the Meyer lemon, one of them's changing color. I think it's because it's the one exposed to the sun the most, but the rest are kind of, green. So we'll see what's going on there. Let me just make sure this little water sucker is... This. I always gotta double check the water suckers, make sure they're coming from a main trunk. Okay, cool. I will say this, rootstock wise, I do love the C22 bitters way better, all the trifoliate rootstocks, because the trifoliate rootstocks, when they're growing up, they have like the 3 leaves versus the other rootstocks they use, like the C35. You can't tell what's the citrus and what's the rootstock. But when the 3 leaves pop up, you're like, oh, that's rootstock. Boom. So much easier to track and maintain. I maybe should have done something here to make sure it doesn't burn from the sun, but sorry, the sun's coming at an angle. It's in the early mornings, but a good amount of fruit here, which is nice. I just watered, replaced the bird bath water, as you can see right there. But yeah, this whole area opens up because this tree was just, there's Dean. This tree was massive. This is my Urizane almond. Look at this. I planted this. Woo. This is the one I planted after I planted the other one, but this one also got the best sun, so I think it grew the most. Or no, I think this one's actually a year older. That might be it, or like 6 months older in the ground. I did that the Indian green jujube. I did that 2 days ago, so not yesterday, but the day before. And then this guy, I did half of it. That's what all this freaking mulch is right here. All on the floor, that's Kylo. And like I even got blisters and stuff, which you can't even see. Where my skin was just like ripping off from using the clippers so much. By hand. It was freaking insane. So yeah, I did half of this pretty much. I gotta do the other half. And then I'll just chainsaw the rest down. Just keeps it easy. One of the things I'm gonna do is kind of do a better job of ahead of time pruning on the citrus. So obviously these are my citrus collections. This is Kylo. So this is my Moro, and it had a huge stalk that was going all the way up. And I said, you know what? How about I try to practice what I preach, which is keeping these things small. I want to really keep them small. So I said, okay, let me go kind of like 14 inches, about 14 foot and a half off of the trunk from where it's growing. Look at where the side branching is going to be, and then I'll cut there. So I gave it a nice little vertical slice there. So that way I can kind of have a more dwarfing habit. I also chopped right here because it had this, any of these like super lanky growths, if it's too far out, I'm just going to chop back to like the nearest sprout that's going in a different direction. The goal is I want this to be a nice small bush. So yes, I will have less fruit production, because I'm keeping it so small forcefully. Obviously, like if I let this tree get big, a bigger tree is going to produce way more. You know what I mean? That's like easy, right? But I have so many other citrus that I don't need as much production, and that I'm fine with, getting maybe less harvest, but having a smaller tree. Well, so I can get through here. Obviously, I butchered the... You can see that with there. I butchered the spicy nectar plum. It's this guy right here. Now you can kind of see what I meant where I said the freaking grass like overgrew me back here. So I'm gonna have to go back and I got the water running. So this guy, it grew above the rootstock. So this is on trifoliate, so I could tell what it is. So kind of going back here, it's a little bit messy. So now I got this giant freaking guy up here. This is a water sprout. So check this out. Effectively, which I'm gonna cut this water sprout right where it starts branching. I'm gonna cut it there, and then I'm gonna maybe cut it at the tip here. So here's the thing. People don't like water sprouts for good reason, to be honest. I find water sprouts, oh, Dean, stepping on me. I find water sprouts to be, I gotta stake this guy up, by the way. Like, holy shit. Pardon my language. I gotta stake him up. Obviously, this guy's a ton of fruit. This guy's got some fruit. This guy, who got a lot of damage, right, on the burn on the trunk, actually held on to some fruit. This is a Miwa. That's crazy. I think this is a daisy or a Murcott. One of the two. But my strategy with water sprouts, as I try to get back over here, 1 second. My strategy with water sprouts. So if you look here, a lot of these ones are water sprouts, and then off the water sprouts, you'll get citrus. So effectively, the ones that grow straight up are water sprouts. They're called water sprouts because effectively they don't produce anything, and then they suck a bunch of nutrition. But here's what I noticed: if you leave the water sprouts on, your tree uses a bunch of its energy to convert it into a regular trunk, and then from that trunk, citrus will hold. You can see it. Citrus will hold. So what I found is the water sprouts are helpful in trying to get a certain shape, but the trade-off is you get less production. But for me, I really like this citrus because it has a bunch of fruit on it, and it's very like upright. And then as the fruit get heavy, the branches kind of come out, and then I chop the branches. So this tree right here, I kind of let it do water sprouts because, to give you a little backstory, earlier on this tree was suffering and it was shrinking, and I found out that the people who planted it for me planted it way too deep. I know, I gotta weed that, it's terrible. Planted it way too deep, and because of that, show my hands, they planted it way too deep, and because of that, or I guess I use this for deep, but because of that, effectively, it'd be a hand model, but because of that, effectively, this tree was dying. So when I uprooted it and I replanted it up top, it then started to grow out, but it was growing a lot of suckers too. But here's the thing: I didn't want this tree to die, so I was like, I'm gonna let these suckers grow because I need this tree to have mass on it because it's losing itself. Well, what I ended up finding out is it was converting all the suckers, and you can kind of see it into like, because normally when a citrus grows out, the branch is kind of like circular, but then when you look, you can kind of see that when suckers have this weird like oblong growth to them, but then it starts to turn them. So that right there you just saw is a sucker probably from this year or last year that's being converted into an actual regular branch that will hold fruit. So I haven't done any studies on like, oh, well, long term, are these suckers going to be less productive? My personal feeling, based on what I see, is probably you stunt yourself a little bit when it comes to production for maybe a couple growing seasons as your tree uses energy to convert the suckers into actual branches. And obviously, as new suckers go out, you're probably going to want to stop it. But for me, it worked out really well. I got my tree back to some size so it could photosynthesize, and the suckers are now turning into producing branches. So for me, I'm happy. Now, if new suckers come, obviously I'm gonna cull them off, right? I don't want more suckers. Now this branch right here wasn't a sucker because it grew at an angle and it had like regular growth on it. It wasn't like it's regular solid circular growth. So this wasn't a sucker. I'm just trying to maintain size. So long story short, suckers are bad, but for me it worked, and I'm not gonna let this guy produce any suckers anymore because I don't need him to. He's in production mode, but it did. That's a nest right there for a bird. I don't know if you guys saw previous videos, but we had a bird this spring baby birds hatch from it. I left the nest just in case they come back and they'll do it again. Because if the mama bird comes back and lays eggs there again, and we keep just having a cycle of birds being birthed, I think that'd be kind of cool. Little citrus. And there's Dean over there. Dean, looking at you, man. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Trying to eat stuff out of there. I made the mistake of putting freaking the feather meal and all that garbage. It's not garbage, it's good stuff. But I made a mistake. I made a mistake of putting that stuff in there. Oh, look at Dean. He know he did something wrong. Oh, and look at this. So yeah, so you have this huge growth came up that like just overtook and then pushed everything over. So I'm gonna have to re-stake this guy up. He's really good, but he's really bushy up here. So I'm gonna go way down to the bottom, probably like 14 inches off again. I'm gonna cut him and then I'm gonna move him over here because I want to force him to bush out. Because this one, it looked like it was a water sucker, but at the same time, it converted. If it was a water sucker, it was converting way too fast. Like it takes another season for that. So this thing was just growing like crazy. So I got to keep it under control. And that gets me to my next point. I know I'm kind of rambling. It's my specialty. But effectively, I got to cut that guy. That's my dwarf everbearing. But effectively, let me get over here so I can show more. But effectively, one of the other things I realized with citrus is, number one, I gotta do a better job of keeping them small. Some of them kind of just worked out that way, but I gotta keep them better small. Number two, so I kind of figure out my spot. Number two, I was very a stickler about when I'm gonna let a citrus produce. The problem I realized is, I'm doing high density planting, right? So normally, this guy right here has about at the base of it, probably a little over a 1-inch caliper, especially because he mounted differently right there. He's separated. This tree is going to try to produce fruit next year. Now, I think blood oranges tend to be a little bit more alternate bearing in the heaviness department, but this tree is going to try to produce fruit next year. Normal me would say, oh, well then I'm just going to go and I'm going to take off all the fruit and let it get bigger and stronger and a thicker trunk. That's cool, but the problem is that just creates more work for myself because then the tree just keeps juicing out. Part of the reason it did this huge growth was because of Eve right behind us, and I chopped Eve down, so I'm going to have shorter trees around so that way it shouldn't be a problem. And I'll obviously do a better job of cutting her back, so that'll work out really nicely. Cutting, because this is a Shangri-La, which I didn't do too bad of a job with, but dwarf everbearing just becomes this huge dark mat. So I got to do a better job of, right now I'm using them to protect these guys, but I got to do a better job of that. So yeah, that's what I learned. Water sprouts can help if you're in a pinch and your tree needs to just have green mass on it, but you offset that with fruit production. And then citrus, I should just let them fruit if they want to hold on to fruit, because they'll self-thin. Unless you have certain types of like satsumas, the citrus will self-thin. So I should write that. I should just let them self-fruit and hold on to what they want to hold on to once their caliper is at least 1 inch. Which Jay from Arizona Fruit Tree Nursery said that, but I was like, no, I want my trees to be bigger and stronger, right? Stronger. And well, look where that gets me. A tree that just grows an insane amount in 1 year, and then like kind of looks lopsided. I'm looking at the other tree over there. So let me get back in here. So yes, look at that. I still got my this is my jackfruit. Just a little, it's supposed to be a cochino. I don't know if it is. I think it might be a seedling, to be honest. But it froze back from the frost, and then now it's finally starting to shoot back. These figs are gonna go, because that opens up this whole area. My quichou has fruit on it, but it dropped a bunch of fruit. As you can see, it dropped a bunch of fruit. So I was trying to figure out, I was like, why is this tree dropping so much fruit? And it happened. I said, okay, well, what was I doing around the time? And what I did around the time was I hit nitrogen. I hit some fish emulsion on all the trees. And when the tree is now putting on all this green growth and mass, but then it's dropping all its fruit. So it's switching from fruiting to growing. So that was a mistake. fertilizing with nitrogen in the late season for young citrus that are holding on to fruit, bad idea, is what I've realized. Because this tree is kind of more immature, so it's obviously nitrogen's going to hit it more. So it's switched from fruit production to growth. So it's just something to keep in mind. That's another thing I realized is I have some trees are more sensitive than others. I think the Kishu is more sensitive because of the fact that it's still relatively younger compared to my other mature citrus, and less thick of a trunk, so it's maybe more sensitive. So we'll see how that works out. But effectively, I have kind of come up with a new system with which I'm going to fertilize. And I've decided that when I do my liquid applications of fish emulsion and stuff in my bucket that I show you guys, and I bubble it up, and then I use some like fulvic acid and all that other stuff, or humic acid, I'm sorry, humic/fulvic. What I'm going to do is I'm only going to do that from like 215 to 415 or something, or, you know, maybe 6 or 8 weeks out of the year, because that's all I really need. I have enough biomass that I naturally chop and drop over time that a lot of the nutrients get recycled anyway. So I think feeding too much is like kind of overkill, and all it'll do is cut into my citrus production too. So to offset that, some low nitrogen, I didn't want, so I'm going to use foliar feeding to offset that. And I'm going to experiment with the Arizona Worm Farm. They came out with this feed, which you can use like obviously in ground. You can also use it in pots, containers, whatever. But I think you can use it for foliar feeding, and I want to use it because I think it has a very low nitrogen content. So it'll be enough to kind of get the citrus some nitrogen here and there, like just a splash, so it doesn't, so the leaves stay nice and healthy. But at the same time, I'm not going to have so much nitrogen that the thing just says, I'm going to get super huge, and the next thing you know, all the fruit just drop. So that's kind of the thought process there. I trimmed up, which is growing like completely one-sided. I trimmed it up. Oh, and the reason I did the fertilizer, look at that, the dogs pooped right after I picked it up. Savages. Which one of you guys did it? This guy is trying to come back, so I'm going to have to chop that. But the reason I hit that with the nitrogen too is because these guys kind of took a beating in the summer. So I wanted to give them some energy to pop back up, which they did. Once I trimmed this apple, which is just a beast. You see how big it is? It's a beast. Well, I'm going to hack back this apple to the brick wall level and then trim all these sides. Once I do that, this will free up more sunlight for her. So in the summertime, this kind of helped actually. But in the winter, it's not helpful at all. So I'm going to do that. So this is a Miwa, Fukushu, Lime-Quat. The Lime-Quat, I gotta adjust my screen. The Lime-Quat, which is this guy, sprouted back up, which I love, above the rootstock. The Fukushu handled the heat better out of any of the three. I found out that with citrus, apparently, when they defoliate and then they reflush, it's a sign that your citrus is going to make it. Look at them trying to eat grass, little bastards. Because I guess if your citrus doesn't let go of its flush, its growth, and it doesn't like try to restart itself, your citrus is likely going to die. That's what I saw on a video online. But when it does defoliate, there's a good chance that it'll survive. So I just sprayed the trunks with some kaolin clay and diatomaceous earth to protect the trunks so they don't get burned from the heat. And then it re-popped out everywhere and it's doing good. So it worked out. It really did. These guys, I also wanted these guys to kind of get juiced up a little bit. I'm gonna watch out for that poop. I usually pick up poop in the morning so I don't have to worry about it when I'm walking around, but they always drop a couple little bombs right after. I also cut that guy. So he's next. But it was raining, so I couldn't do these guys. I cut that guy before it got rainy, obviously. A little bit so they could dry out. But so I wanted to juice these guys up a little bit. This is the Golden Nugget, which he seems to be coming up. He seems to be doing decent. And then obviously that's my Midnight Valencia. It's my mango. At this point, I'm honestly not even paying attention to this mango. So next year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a big black barrel full of water right there. to passively heat these guys, and then I'm just gonna let it. I'm gonna put maybe like just a frost cloth on the top, not even over the whole thing, and to protect them from initial frost. And then just let these guys, well, because this can handle it no problem, but these two guys are gonna probably be more sensitive. See what happens. Because it was able to handle just with the frost cloth and no heating, it handled and it popped back. So I'm thinking it'll do better as a bigger tree. Now, is this still hard as a rock? That freaking Subel. That Subel, even if the birds mess it up, I'm gonna be okay. Because I'm gonna take those seeds and I'm gonna plant those seeds as part of my seed growing stuff. Wait, where's the shit? Oh, it's right there. Okay, Jesus Christ, I got scared. I was like, did I just step in it? You guys, the number of times I've stepped in my own dog shit after picking up poop is like insane. Because you're not thinking about it and you're walking and bam, you step in it. Bam, step in it. So I do all these, when I'm recording, I keep my hand up here and I'm doing all these hand signs. And you guys can't see it, so I'm gonna try to capture all that activity. But yeah, so that's what's going on right now. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Obviously I saw a lot of work. There's like a beast of grass back there and some other weeds. And I think some like nightshade berries or something over there too. Which, I don't know what that means, but it's there. But yeah, so all in all, yard's coming together really nicely. As far as like stuff goes, vetiver grass I'm gonna permanently kill off. These guys I'm just going to trim up. I'm going to get rid of the olive back there. It's just too big for its spot. And there's a fig back there, a Violet de Bordeaux. I'm going to see if I'm either going to contain it or if I'm just going to kill it, put something easier and bushier in that spot. We'll have to see. Oh, look at all this leaf matter. But yeah, all in all, looking pretty good. I got to kind of figure out what I want for my spots, for my citrus. I kind of have an idea of where I can fit most stuff. So in place of these figs over here, I'm going to do the pomelos, so the Tahitian, the Valentine. Right here, I can do the grapefruit. I might do a double planting where I might do the grapefruit right here and then another one right here. So it's kind of like the other one will be able to get that afternoon sun or that morning sun, you know, and then the grapefruit will kind of protect it in the afternoon a little bit from that blasting heat, which I think will be really nice. And then probably put something over there. Sorry, a fly got on me. Probably put something over there. And then I'm going to put something further in, but where the, see how I get over there, where the Indian green jujube is. I'm going to probably end up ripping out the rose, putting it further in. Because I have some that are just going to be like a dwarfing, you know, sweet orange. So I'll figure something out with that. But I think for the most part, I think I have it all figured out. It's just really, where am I going to put the Shiranui? The two Shiranuis is kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking I might end up putting, like I said, one right here with the grapefruit. And then I always like to put the smaller one where it can get the morning sun and then have the bigger one kind of act as a protector from the afternoon because the sun goes this way. As you can see, there's shade, there's sun. See, the sun's going this way. See, rises, falls, because this is south. But so I'm thinking I might do the same thing, and then I might put a Shiranui right there and a Shiranui right there, and then maybe call that a day, and then put the Fukumoto and then the Hamlin right there. That way I kind of have all my citrus in their little spots. And obviously I'll put that guy a little bit in, because I don't care about him crowding out the guava too much, because the guava is kind of more of an experiment. See if we like it. And it also happens to fruit around the time. Dean, what are you doing? That guy. Look at that little pup. We're always trying to get into mischief. All right, well, I'm going to leave it here. I've been rambling long enough. But yeah, also I'm going to get rid of my my moringa tree. Once we get the patio done, which I've been talking about for years, because that requires money. But once we get the patio done, that final strip is going to be pretty much all, that final strip is going to be all mangoes. And then I probably will do two moringas that I'll keep tinier, that I'll have just off the patio. And I might do that. So that way I'm able to still harvest some moringas, or maybe just do one kind of off to the side somewhere so I can still get moringa. Problem is I haven't been very faithful in the sense of like actually harvesting all the matter. So I've actually lost a lot of matter because a frost will hit, or, you know, because I'll be like, oh, I'll let it bloom, and then everything's eating off in the winter, and then the frost hits, and then all the leaves are messed up, and it's like, oh, well, what did I do? I just had this big old tree here. So we'll see. I don't even know if I'm going to have the energy to actually, you know, preserve and go through the process of like processing all the leaves. So more likely than not, I might just end up chopping and dropping it, because you know, I'm doing a lot because I'm a little bit in my busy season, but I'm also trying to spend like an hour out here every afternoon, like just before sunset, where there's like that twilight hour of like an hour, like after dinner, but before sunset, or before the sun officially goes, with this still like light out because it's summertime. That's when I'm going out here and I'm like doing all this stuff as best I can. So yeah, all in all, not too bad. I still got a lot to do. This is a project today, and then I got to process all that Indian green jujube. And then I also have some other stuff from the front yard that I let dry of Palo Verde that I got to process at some point, because I have a new load I got to take fresh from the front yard to keep the Palo Verdes a reasonable height, because they're getting too big. So I got a lot of work ahead of me, but I finally kind of got some control over the grass. I really just got to get that last bastion, and then I got to weed all the raised beds from all the grass and stuff. But I'm almost there, guys. I'm almost there. Once I get my goal is kind of get these big trees out of the way, get all the troubles out, trim up the trees that need to be trimmed up, and then plant these babies. And then once that's done, I can then just focus on the raised beds, and then I can focus on processing the front trees to get them into the backyard, just chop and drop it. Well, although I'll really try to turn it into mulch, because I need more mulch for these raised beds. All right, well, I'm going to leave it here. Appreciate you guys. It's your boy, Batias Jawa, signing out.